Okay, mic check, mic check, mic check. Should be able to hear, see the screen and all that. Mr. Blue here, Trade Phantoms. And I'm going to be going through about an hour of pre-market prep. And maybe take a couple of trades off the open, TradePhantoms.com. Let's kick this thing off here. So we got, hopefully the audio is good here. Looks like green across the board here. Okay, cool. Today's date, Blue here, TradePhantoms.com. Today's date, August 26th, 2025, brings us to a Tuesday. Hopefully everybody's having a good August and good start to this week, yesterday being Monday. Want to start this off here. Last week, some things were going down in regard to a couple of weeks have been going down. A couple of things have been going down in regard to the Fed, the Federal Reserve. Are they going to rate cut or not? Just kicked out into forexfactory.com here, and today being Tuesday, in regard to on the backdrop of the Federal Reserve potentially cutting rates or not, as they're going back and forth in regard to that. As Jackson Hole, the meeting last week has now ended. As Jay Powell spoke, coming into this week, we do have a couple of news announcements hitting today, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. About an hour from now, we have CB, Consumer Confidence, Richmond Manufacturing Index as well. That's 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's going to be about 30 minutes after the market opens. So definitely want to make sure that's on the radar as you're taking potential trades. Tomorrow being Wednesday, pretty quiet. And then going into Thursday, at the later part of this week, we do have unemployment claims as always on Thursday, prelim, GDP here in the U.S. That is pretty much our core PCE, and that's pretty much it for the most part after consumer sentiment, which is a small impact there. So that will be the button up. That will button up the month of August. September typically is going to be where you'd have typically a market where that would pull back. We'll talk a little bit more about that with with the Phantoms group as we go forward. But just as a key takeaway note right now, as we're kind of scrambling into the room here today on the streams, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Definitely put that on your radar in regard to trading in the event that you have an open position. I usually kick this off like this. I bring this up every single time I am on a live stream or in the trade rooms at Trade Phantoms. And this is kind of a quick little checklist, cheat sheet, if you will, in regard to top-down multiple time frame analysis approach. Phantoms, demand and supply. Institutional demand and supply is super key. If I can get this thing to work properly there. Top-down multiple time frame analysis approach. And you'll see a lot of orange, yellows, and blues on my charts. And the reason being for that is I color code time frames. So anything that you see in the color orange is going to be with the monthly time frame association. Weekly is going to be yellow color code, followed by daily is going to be blue. So anything that you see in those regarding in respect to those color codes is going to be in regard to that specific time frame itself. Okay. That said, this is the quick checklist. We go over this and do more time as time persists, not before the market opens. Here's a bunch of, why does this keep doing this? Here's a bunch of bullish candlesticks, a bunch of fancy names, location and context being most important. Bullish candlesticks in the context of uptrends is going to be more probable. We have bearish candlesticks, a bunch of fancy names. In the context of downtrends into supply is going to be most important as you're looking at these formations here. We do also have what's called a liquidity map, and we discussed this a lot more in due time as mentioned. We have our classes at Phantoms. This is what's called the liquidity map. I usually park this to the left. This gets brought up at least once or twice, in the live trade rooms as we go on hours and hours. All right, that's how. Let's get to the charts. Quick little pre-market prep before the market opens. About 35 minutes, give or take. And I'm going to start with the S&P futures. So this is Think or Swim. All right, so I'll start with the S&P futures. Go through a couple of what's called Globex traps in the S&P and the NASDAQ, and then we'll move over into the VIX, the SPX, and some indexes and individual tickers, mainly the Magnificent Seven, as the options are going to be more liquid. What you will see, if you can kind of make out it on TikTok here, is you'll up on the upper left and everywhere else. On the upper left you'll have the daily time frame of the S&P futures. Upper right, NASDAQ daily time frame. Lower left, Dow Jones, Russell 2000 on the bottom right. I'm just going to pop open. Well, as I sit here real quick, I'll leave this like this. As we speak right now, S&P futures pretty much flat for the most part, 0.08%. NASDAQ down slightly, 0.011%. Dow Jones pretty flat as well, 0.09%, followed by the Russell 2000 on the bottom right. Small caps up slightly, 0.15%. So pretty quiet at the moment right now. Pop open this daily time frame. I know it might be a little bit more difficult to see. Kind of zooming in here on the daily. Here's current price. What's going on, Thomas? What's going on, Thomas? What's going on? 1 ounce of dairy. Hopefully everybody's having a good start to the week. All right, so I got a daily time frame. We have the S&P futures. And as you can see, pretty quiet at the moment. Small body range at the moment. We are basically, to keep a long story short here, is if I look over to the left, 2 days ago, meaning the 22nd of August, which was Friday, happened to be Friday. In other words, last Friday, we had this massive bullish day, right? So we've had a period before that. We had a couple of, last week, mainly the markets were down, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, several days down. And then on Friday, as we had Jackson Hole, Jerome Powell came out and, took a couple of questions after he took a couple of moments to speak, right? So he had a bit of a speech there. And he basically was hinting that, okay, great. There's disagreement within the board members. I'm not going to try to turn this into an economics class here. Slightly disagreement, but he did kind of hint that, okay, September might give us a higher probable chance to potentially cut in terms of the rates. Now, there's a tool that we use, CME Fed Watch tool, that we go to, okay, in the CME group, and we track this at Phantoms, right, based on Fed Fund futures, and this has been moving, right? Okay, this is the probability in which the Fed may or may not cut the rate in their next meeting in terms of September 17th. Okay, and this has been going up. It was upwards up to about 95%, and went all the way down about 64, 60%, even lower to like to 55% before the Jackson Hole meeting last week. And then Jerome Powell came out and spoke and kind of hinted that, okay, great, we're looking like we still want to, we will be cutting the first time potentially in September 17th, give or take. It's still speculation, okay, but that probability went higher, and that made or helped the market just rally up on Friday, which it just, literally the SPX moved about 55 points in a matter of 2-3 minutes. Okay, so that's what we see there on Friday, as we had a couple days down, and we did enter into a level of demand, which we were talking about in Phantoms for quite some time here before, as we were padding this pullback here, and then boom, on Friday had a nice pop up. However, now yesterday being Monday to kick off the week, yesterday was pretty quiet, right? S&P futures did not make an all-time high. SPY did end up making an all-time high, new all-time high on Friday. SPY, the ETF, to the S&P 500. S&P futures did not, and the SPX did not. Now, Monday, kind of quiet day yesterday, kind of settled within Friday's high and Friday's low. Today, entering into Tuesday, okay, we'll see. We're still inside of the Friday bar, if you will, on that massive rally due to Jackson Hole speech there from Jay Powell, as I just mentioned there, okay? So we'll see. We're going to drop down to the small time frames in a moment, and you'll see some structure and formation as I map out what's called the Globex traps. NASDAQ, very similar, okay, in that if I kind of zoom in here, I know it might be a little bit difficult to see here, but if you can kind of make this out to see what's going on, Kurt. Howdy, Thomas. NASDAQ, again, pretty quiet right now, just flat 0.13%. Friday, big bar here. However, as we can see here, NASDAQ had, similarly to S&P's down days last week, of course, down a little week, but on Friday, we had a nice little pop up. However, NASDAQ is not as close to its all-time high relative to the SPY, which is the S&P 500. So technology sector has been a little bit more coming down a bit there, as the Magnificent Seven is, the Mag 7 is, a lot of tickers are visiting their all-time highs, but they're off their all-time highs. Okay, we do have NVIDIA earnings coming up, earnings tomorrow as well, so that's noteworthy that you might want to put on your radar. All right, I'll drop down to the small time frames in a moment to map out some structure as well, what's called the Globex traps. However, if I look to current price down over into the left, okay, we're back in the middle of kind of Friday's bar. Okay, so we have what's called a mother bar. Okay, so yesterday was an inside day. Today, opening up so far 30 minutes before the actual regular trading hours open at 9:30, kind of halfway through that pullback inside of Friday's bigger move. What I'm going to do here is go over to the monthly and the weekly and the daily. Okay. And one of the things that you firstly do here is map out yesterday's high, yesterday's low. It'll be a little more cleaner when I get to the QQQs and the SPY and the SPX chart in a moment. Before that, though, if you look here on the chart, I got a monthly time frame on the left. I got a weekly in the middle, daily on the right. So monthly, weekly, daily. Super important there to give you all the lay of the land. Higher time frames, multiple time frame analysis approach. I also have the 60-minute time frame here in the upper left, the 30-minute time frame bottom left, followed by the 5-minute here in the middle, and then I got the 2-minute time frame, which is a small time frame here over here on the right. Hey, One Ounce of Theory, thank you for hitting the like button on that. 1 Ounce of Theory. Hey, Super Dave on TikTok, good to see you. And on YT as well. All right, cool. So I'm going to pop open the 60-minute time frame here of the S&P futures. All right, I'm going to get straight to the point here. 1 hour time frame of the S&P. And one of the first things that we want to do is map out our Globex high. So in Thinkorswim, this gray space here. Let me delete these lines here to clean this up a bit. I'll explain in a moment. Okay, so here's current price. Here's current price over here to the left. S&P futures on a 1 hour time frame here. And this up and left, this is the Globex high. This gray space in Thinkorswim is the overnight session. So this is the overnight high here. Comes in at about 64, call it 63, give or take, 64.63. The next thing I'm going to do here is map out what's called our Globex low. And this is the lowest low that we put in the S&P futures. 1 hour time frame here, 64.31. That is the Globex low. Okay, so I have a Globex high, overnight high, and I have a Globex low, overnight low here. What I'm looking for is an institutional level of demand below the Globex low. And before I even get into that, we are still in the context of an overall higher time frame uptrend. Okay, bull market. I know there's a lot of things happening in the backdrop, geopolitical wise, etc. Fed, are they going to cut or not? There's drama between the Fed, all that kind of stuff. There's always going to be something, right? But we're going to be trading the chart, okay, in the setups. So we're still in an overall uptrend on the overall high time frame markets, right? So I want to be trading with the overall trend, which is still bullish. So I'm going to be looking for, or be more leaning on, or leaning against, or more keen into buying as prices are dropping into levels of demand. Now we need to identify an institutional level of demand, and we have classes in regard to teach y'all that. Okay, we have some fancy numbers in here as well at the moment. But to put more probability in our favor, we have with this thing called Globex trap, which is we're breaking the Globex low. I'm going to look down and left, and I want to look for a nice institutional prime level of demand below that said Globex low. Okay, to trap traders who are chasing price as prices are coming down into a demand level. Okay, in the context of an uptrend. And that said, if I look at the Globex low right there at 64.30, I'm looking down below that, and if I look down and left, okay, we do have a bit of an impulse, a basing, and an impulse here, and that was the demand level that got formed at or around the S&P futures down here at 64.05. Okay, on that on Friday, where the market's just boom, popped open, opened. Okay, within like the first maybe 30 minutes, give or take. Once Count J Powell kind of hinted at that. Okay, great, we could be on a transitional period here for the cuts. The market took that ball and ran with it north. So that is the impulse, basic impulse from that news there. Okay, so we could reference that, of course. And this could be an area of demand that in the event that we come down into this level, okay, we could potentially take what's called a G-trap long, or to be bullish. Okay, that is an impulse, basic impulse. That price point comes in at about 64.04, 64.05. Okay, and that could be used as what's called a G-trap. Now I already have a level kind of mapped out there as we kind of came down there in the past, where we have levels that kind of already get tested, looking for these liquidity sweeps lower. Kind of grab that. All right, and now we rip back to the upside. Okay, so for one of the first levels that we're going to be looking for here is going to be 63. I went a little bit lower here as I kind of kept that line on. That was once a previous daily low as well. Okay, 63.98 is going to be an area where I'm looking for a G-trap long to become bullish. Okay, below that I have a 63.80. Okay, but I want to be careful here. We have a daily low, basically Friday's low. Okay, so map out Friday's low. Friday's low is going to be about roughly 63, give or take, rounding up, rounding down, 63, 64 ish. Okay, that's going to be a Friday's low, and that's going to be the mother bar. Now, I mentioned that in the event that we break this 63.97 and we come lower below 63.63, and we break that daily low, I'm also looking for a potential G-trap long at 63.50 in the S&P futures. Okay, so you might want to write that down. Okay, 63.50. In the event that we break that Friday's low, okay, there could be a G-trap at 63.50. There's also a note here that I have on the board here. I'm not sure if I'm going to get down there today. However, as a reference point below another daily low, I have 63.28 as a liquidity sweep as well below. Earlier in April, we had a April 7th daily low coming at 63.33. Therefore, if we sweep that daily low, I have a 63.28 G-trap long there. Okay, I know I'm kind of speaking fast here, but just mapping out institutional levels of demand and liquidity sweeps below all right, daily lows and Globex trap lows, okay, to trap traders, as these were all previous kind of traps into demand as prices were dropping down into those levels. Okay, so super interesting there for today. So definitely first one on the board is going to be that 6,400. Call it the 63.97 handle right below that demand level. Okay, probably a lot of stop losses placed right there. So I would suggest not to put your stop loss right below that level. Pretty obvious. In the event that we break the Globex high, if I look up and left, okay, great. We do have a level of supply right there formed yesterday being Monday. We had a rally, a bit of a basing candle here. Then we had a drop. Okay, yesterday was kind of a still inside day from just Friday's high and low. Okay, we did have a little bit of a drop there. So in the event that we rally up, okay, we could potentially use this this 64.80 handle as a potential G trap. Now this is going to be aggressive, so I have a note there. Okay, this has not been tested. This has been tested. Okay, we had a supply level here that happened overnight, and then on Monday, yesterday, about 12 o'clock noon, give or take, we tested that level. Okay, 64.81 level. So be extremely careful with that level. I would not put your stop loss right above that level. That looks like it's going to be a stop liquidities fish potentially today. Above that, if long TP. Now, in the event that we get above even Friday's high up here, I would also reference Friday's high, 64.96-ish, 97-ish in the S&P futures, 1 hour time frame here. In the event that we break Friday's high, I do have a 64.98, which is a drop based kind of a rally, a basing, and a drop right here, and IBI right above that. At rounding up 6,500. The all-time high in the S&P futures is 6,508. So in the event that we do potentially rally, we could sneak in to a quick little new all-time higher. So shorting this market is still, we're high. I get it, but still, it's been a losing proposition so far, right? So if long, I would suggest a TP. In the event that we do get up here pretty quickly, okay, you could TP from longs and potentially try to take a stab at what's called a G-trap mean reversion to short. Okay. However, just be careful with that as the markets are still in a raging bull market. Okay, so we have this thing called Globex traps we talk about, just looking for institutional levels of supply above Globex high and institutional levels of demand below the Globex low to look at some demand. Okay, but I want to be trading with the overall higher time frame trend, which is still going to be bullish as we discussed for the past several weeks, even with these markets coming down 2-3% off their all-time highs. Okay, picking up some more demand and ripping to the upside again. Okay. At some point that will end, but we'll see. One of the things I'm looking for as well is if you notice, if you put a pin on the candle, I'm on a 1 hour time frame of the S&P futures. If you put a pin on the candle at about roughly yesterday, Eastern Standard Time, about 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, we had a nice little drop in the S&P and then in the Nasdaq. However, for the past several hours since that point, okay, we've been what's called an inside candle. Okay, markets have not really moved other than that decent little drop previous at 8 p.m. Eastern. Okay, and again, if I look at that drop 1 hour down, okay, it didn't really do anything in regard to give back as much on Friday's big move up. Okay, so we've been on inside 1 hour inside bar on the 1 hour since yesterday 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, and one of the things I'm looking at too here, we'll see. This white dash line is VWAP. All right, we have a couple of wicks down here. All right, but it'd be pretty interesting to see because we're opening up in a base right now in the overall S&Ps and Nasdaq. Okay, kind of balance here. So it's going to be interesting to see how this Globex high, Globex low, which is actually the mother bar high, mother bar low since 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, how that's going to react in terms of some what's called fakey breakies, right? Fakey breakies. So just be a little bit more patient off the open here today as we're kind of opening up in mid-range, okay, from Friday's session. Monday, yesterday being kind of just a quiet kind of grind lower day. Nothing too crazy there. NASDAQ futures, okay, I'll do this pretty quickly here. Just update my lines. Looking at the time here. Oh my God, I gotta go. Keep it moving. If you want to learn a little bit more about this, you can go to this website here. Okay, this website right there. All right, that will take you to this webpage here. Just taking a sip of coffee here. We're gonna move on here, and you can click that register bar there and potentially check out what TradePhantoms has to offer for you folks in there. What's going on, YouTube? What is the trade? Eric A's in the house. Let's keep it moving here. NASDAQ, Globex high, Globex low. Map that out. G-trap last Friday. A couple of them down here were just beautiful. Here's the new Globex high here today. Super Dave, I see you on Good luck with that, brother. Super Dave. I'm trying to work out something there for you on Phantoms, man, but I don't know. But stay close, brother. So 1 hour time frame of NASDAQ here. I got a global high, overnight high here, overnight low here. Everything that I just mentioned in the S&P futures could be said for the NASDAQ as well, other than maybe NASDAQ has just been a little bit more weaker, relatively speaking. Okay, this is global high, global low. Now, this is Friday's high, so you definitely want to reference that. This is what's called the mother bar high. So this is a 1 hour time frame of the NASDAQ futures. However, I know that this is Friday's high right here if you map that out. So you definitely want to put that on your radar. Comes in at about 23,650 here. Okay, and that is also above the Globex high, and also we have yesterday's high, hanging up here as well. So a bunch of daily highs here. Now, as we base, if we potentially go and break this higher, we do have some intermediate supply levels here on a small time frame. Again, I just mentioned that we have the supply here that got tagged. This is also going to be yesterday's high up here as well. Okay, but we're in a bull market, right? So this could be the base. Just be careful here, because if this builds enough pressure and steam, okay, consolidation, if we pop, okay, that could be, we could have a liquidity sweep pop above here. So in the event that we break this Globex high, okay, even yesterday being Monday's high, and then Friday's high, which is also last week's high, okay, what I'm looking for is a potential trap right above here. So this was a demand level, okay, that was being held as a shelf, and it snapped and it broke. That said, this could be a retest on the other side here, if you're kind of tracking here. So in English, 23,710 up into 23,770. These are going to be potential areas where, if long, I would suggest to take profit up here, hitting targets. And then we can also take a potential G trap short up here that comes in about 23,715. And then the area, the second level above that was 23,000 up here. Okay, there's a big drop right there. That's where the sellers overtook the buyers and really dropped from this demand zone here, creating supply at 780. Of course, you got to put a 23,000 in front of that. All right, G-Chop short. Potentiality here. Again, I'm on a 1 hour time frame with the NASDAQ futures. All right, Globex trap long. Now, NASDAQ has been a little bit more weaker, right? So if we were to happen to break this Globex low and break lower, there goes that Friday impulse basing, impulse IBI, impulse basing, period of basing, and the impulse right there. Watch out for this low right there at 23,201. We can still reference this 23,155 level, but remember that Friday low, reference that. If we were to break that Friday low, 22,995 would be a fresher prime level lower down here. Okay, 22,995. Okay, in the event that we pick up some more steam and volatility here. Okay, so again, these levels have been tested over here to the left, as you can see from last week. Okay, we were on this last week. Okay, coming into this week, this has been tested. So in the event that the markets want to fish out some new liquidity, making new lows, etc., okay, we get that 22,990. Okay, 995-ish. Okay, down here, and that level was formed at impulse basing impulse at around Sunday, August 4th, about 2 to 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, if you pin that out. Now, we have to be careful with that level too, because it was developed overnight. Okay, I got to keep it moving and grooving, just kind of giving you all the lay of the land for some G traps. Okay, with some expansion of volatility if we potentially get that. Okay, be careful with that Friday level, as it's super obvious. At around there, 23,250. All right, so I'll kind of like grade that out. I'm sure there's a ton of stop losses right below this level, so you almost might want to, instead of putting your stop loss right below that level, you can almost put an entry. Okay, 23,000 right below that 23,200 level. 23,195 could be a nice little G trap long here today. All right, next, VIX. VIX. All right, this is recorded on the platform with an abbreviation YT channel. Go to TradePhantoms, YT channel, and this will be recorded there, okay? VIX. Good morning, Joe Frank. What's going on, Mark Wahlberg? VIX Volatility Index, 30-day implied vol of the S&P 500, SPX to be specific. What you need to understand about VIX is if VIX is, to keep it short and sweet, VIX up, market down, VIX down, market up, so opposite correlations there. We're painting a VIX 1530, so things are pretty quiet for the most part, bull market. I explain a little bit more detail of some more advanced topics in regard to VIX. But for right now, we got a quiet VIX, slightly, it's actually slightly up a little bit right now at the moment. We gapped up. Okay, we a daily time frame here, closed here. We slightly gapped up overnight, no big deal. But kind of fading that at the moment. But the VIX is still up about 0.3% overnight. And I've also mapped this out on the smaller time frames here, which we kind of call what's called internals. Okay, so that said, here is the VIX on a small time frame, and I map out or pin the overnight low in that gray space right there, the overnight high here. And what this tells me is if the VIX stays low or trends lower, that could be more bullish. As the VIX is coming down, the market could be going up, at least for the day. However, if VIX rips up and goes up and continues its uptrend potentially for the day, that could be more bearish for the market. So I kind of pin, I'm kind of moving a lot here. So I kind of pin the overnight high and overnight low with those gray lines there in the overnight session there. All right, and I pin with kind of where I last seen it there, and we'll track this, right? Just kind of put two ellipses here, just to remind folks. Okay, great. It took out the high, but is it sustaining? If it took out the low, is it sustaining below that low? Again, inverse or opposite correlation there. I am Joe Frank. I noticed that this morning, Joe Frank, brother, on YT. Joe Frank, I'm having a little issues with TradeStation myself. I noticed that this morning. Okay, SPYs, SPY, ETF of the S&P 500. I got a weekly on the left and a daily on the right. Just going over high time frames right now, looking at pre-market quotes and gaps. We got 10 minutes before the market opens. Okay, making sure you're mapping out last week's high, last week's low. Okay, took a nice swipe last week. Okay, below last week's low, 1, 2, 3, 4 days down, what have you. Okay, gap up on Friday, boom, big pop. Okay, that provided a nice wide range bar. SPY poked its head above a new quick little new all-time high. However, yesterday being Monday, we kind of slightly gapped down, no big deal. We just kind of hung up here on the upper third. Now today, as a pre-market quote, we're slightly gapping down, nothing too crazy. And even if we did gap down even more, okay, we're still within Friday's high and low bar. Okay, so here's Friday's low, here's Friday's high. Yesterday was an inside day. Now, given the fact that Friday was just a massive day, big candle there, and we didn't really make a new high off of yesterday being Monday to start off the week. Okay, a lot of things here on a pullback is going to be still inside. So just make sure you're referencing that Friday low, as I mentioned in the S&P futures here. Slight gap down here, no big deal. So I'm not really going to mention too much on that. Now we'll go over the SPX. We're not gapping much up or down, even something on the SPX, which is the cash index of the S&P 500. Okay, so we just covered S&P futures, NASDAQ futures. Now I'm going over into the SPY, which I just did. Okay, not much of a quote of a gap there. And I'm going over to SPX. Now SPX closed yesterday 64, call it 39, and we're going to be maybe gapping down a little bit lower in the event that this market doesn't move 9 minutes from now, give or take. Okay, so the pre-market quote on SPX, I'd say roughly about 64, about 35, give or take. What am I going to do with that information? Well, we have this advanced kind of, I would say, there's some advanced things that we do here is market maker gamma exposure. Okay, this is a very heavy topic here. But as a key takeaway just right now, if I go to the opening price of the SPX, about at or around 64.34, 39, or 40 to 35, give or take. I got a 64.40 key takeaway here. There's a massive, what's called positive gamma hold. This is a market maker gamma exposure based on GEX. Heavy topic here. You can learn more about that at Phantoms there, okay, on this website. We talk a lot more in detail regarding that, okay, so you can hit up that website there. And a couple of key takeaways here is we're looking at what's called positive and negative gamma regimes. Heavy topic here. However, just as a key takeaway for my Phantoms members here, John, hopefully I'll caught Tesla not only last week with the group. That was one of the better trades on Friday, but we had some fall through yesterday being on Monday. So hopefully, if for my Phantoms members, if you checked the Friday bar closing, Tesla and even Google was one of the stronger ones that closed that positive COG, and then they followed through on Monday. I had mentioned, gave some footnote on that late on Friday before we ended the trade room session, where I was talking about go back to the charts at about 3 o'clock and figure out which one is going to have the strongest close going into Friday's close, and that can give you some insight for potentially opening up some swings following week. So hopefully people will take advantage of that, looking at the way Tesla closed, which I'm hoping that I can get you into. Key takeaway here, 6445, massive positive gamma node there. So if we're trading below that and we come up to that, that can be used as some supply resistance. Okay, if we're trading above that and we get back to it, that can be used as demand/supply. Again, heavy topic right now. So if you're just following the channel right now on TikTok for new folks, you're probably not gonna, if you're never got exposed to that, it's probably gonna sound like a completely different language. Okay, that's the bad news. The good news is Phantoms. Okay, we teach in detail and we use this every single day, so it can just help you with your trading as we're looking at professional areas. Okay, of what the market makers are doing on top of institutional demand and supply. Okay, so it's going to give you more edge and probability the more you know, and as we stress, trading multiple asset classes. So if you're trading futures, okay, options are going to help you trading your futures. If you trade, right, so on and so forth. All these markets are interconnected. All right, I got to move on as we're 6 minutes before market opens. I want to get to some tickers, but I will come back to this as the market opens, and instead of talking in hypotheticals, trading above or below, I'll get back to this and give you some footnote as we open. That said, let me get back over to the charts here. I'm going to do this pretty quickly, okay? Starting with the Qs, and then I'm going to do the Mag 7 from Apple, Amazon, all the way down to NVIDIA on the Mag 7, the Magnificent 7. The reason being, I know there's a bunch of other tickers that might have some setups, okay, but the options are super liquid because I'll trade some of the options if I have a setup right off the open. I know these options are super liquid with the bid and the ask spread is not tight. That said, it's not wide, it's tight, which is a good thing, the bid, ask, and the spread. Here's QQQs, which is the ETF for NASDAQ. Okay, I got a weekly on the left again, and a daily time frame on the right. All right. Appreciate the love, the likes, and Netflix. Yeah, Netflix is also looking pretty decent too. Mark Wahlberg. All right. So I got last week's high, last week's low here. I'm not going to get into that too much. As a key takeaway right now, here's NASDAQ, daily time frame. So we had impulse move, higher high. Okay, we pulled back pretty significantly, and NASDAQ is trying to line back up, if you will, okay, to potentially try to visit maybe its all-time highs. Okay, but markets, in regard to the S&P, are close to the all-time highs. NASDAQ, however, is not. Okay, so tech sector is just a little bit more slower at the moment right now. Yesterday's high, today's low is here, but that's inside of Friday's high and Friday's low, which is the mother bar, and we have a slight gap down. Nothing too crazy there. I'm going to go to Apple, see if they have an outside gap or if there's a better setup in terms of a gap pre-market quote. Again, weekly on the left, daily on the right. That's the last time I'll say that, but make sure you're looking at the higher time frames. Okay, seeing how last week's high, last week's low closed. Yesterday's high, yesterday's low is here. Apple again inside Friday's bar. Nothing too crazy. So slight gap down, but there's potential better setups on the gaps, as you'll see in a moment if I can try to get to them. Yesterday's high and low on Amazon here. Just quick over to Amazon. Again, Friday's high and low is the mother bar. Now, Amazon did pop out a quick little new high yesterday, but it has been getting kind of pinched here. Last week in Amazon was an inside week. Off earnings, we kind of moved down into this weekly level. Then we kind of picked back up. Okay, very close to the all-time high, but we haven't really touched the all-time high just yet on Amazon, but it's kind of getting pinched here. And by that, I mean, kind of like a triangular pattern here where we're not really making new highs and we're not really making new lows right now. And so we're a little bit more of a pinch here on Amazon. But watch out for that. If we fall through off this positive COG and we have alignment to the upside, that could easily pick up steam to the upside again. As far as the gap, we have an outside gap, a little bit of a topping tail there. However, we're still in the context of an overall uptrend. We'll see how the intraday tape unravels potentially on Amazon and how the S&Ps open. But the gap is not super significant. Now, AVGO, uptrend, of course, one of the strongest stocks on the planet here. And no gap at all. So kind of holding some bids during the pre-market quote at the moment. Again, still one of the strongest stocks in the S&P, part of the Mag 7. However, semiconductors have been, over the past 2 weeks have been coming back down a little bit here, right? In which they needed to a bit here. AVGO is in the semiconductor space. Okay, so but however, something like AMD and NVIDIA, came off their highs. Okay, but kind of picking back up in terms of gathering some demand for potential high. I wouldn't be surprised if AVGO does take a potential new higher high at some point here. However, we could go low before that. We do have last week's low right there, so watch out for that. I had mentioned this even in something like Apple, which is not even close to being one of the stronger Mag 7 stocks. Okay, but Apple last week had a setup where they swapped right below last week's low. Okay, and we're kind of even off that right there. So those last week's low are super important. That was the previous week low, and then last week we came down in there. We swiped that, and it came back in a rebalance. Using that as an example comparison, AVGO, which is even stronger than Apple, in the event that we do swipe below last week's low, okay, there could be a bit of a trap right there. My Phantoms members will know. Geez, I'm getting a lot of invites to join live. Appreciate that, folks. But I have to respectively just decline at the moment. I got to be ready to trade the open in about 2 minutes. Google made all-time high yesterday. I've been ranting about to the group that this is probably looking like it wants to make the all-time high club as well, along with other Mag 7s. Okay, I mentioned even on Friday we got long Friday on Google. Kind of was a late bloomer, picked up, and then Google had a nice little close, decent there, fall through yesterday. Google had an all-time high. We're coming off that right now. Again, not one to short at the moment. We do have a slight little gap down, but again, literally Google just made history by popping 211. That was yesterday's high, of course, which is a new all-time high in Google. Okay, so again, yeah, bull market took a little while. Okay, but grinded its way up there. Great. We can see how this opens up. In terms of the pre-market, off the back of the pre-market quote, we're going to see how the intraday tape pans out. Tesla, nice fall through yesterday, beautiful positive COG close, took out 3 days in 1 day. Okay, previously fall through, made a new high here. Still has some relative strength off the open here. Google had, Meta. Tesla. I'm trying to get as much as I possibly can before the open. I never have enough time. But Tesla, be careful with this one. Be careful shorting this one, as it's in a bit of a squeeze at the moment. Even over the weekend, I did some research on in terms of GEX here on if there's a squeeze. So we do have some squeeze because people like to just short Tesla political wise. We don't play politics at Phantoms, but it is underway on a squeeze there. If you know what you're looking for. Mark Wahlberg is looking at Netflix. We actually discussed Netflix in pretty much great detail at the end of Friday's session in Trade Room on Friday. And yesterday's close was a decent little positive COG. So Netflix is potentially on the board here, even for today, right off the open. Shout out to Mark Wahlberg. Now I'm going to switch over. We just got the market open. I'm going to switch over to a daily time frame here on the left. Drop down to a 2 here. There you go, B. Queen B, blessing on YT. I see you. Google caught cool yesterday. Google, indeed. And I'm pretty sure you're probably working on Netflix here because I know you like Netflix. Blessing on YT. I appreciate the likes, folks. All right, let's get to work. Grab some internals real quick. Advanced declines, negative 300, not extreme. Positive or negative 2,000 would be extreme. So nothing extreme here. Pretty quiet open at the moment. VIX down, Valdi slightly down, but nothing too crazy there. All right, Tesla has wide range bar right on the small time frames here, right off the open. That's not closed yet. All right, Tesla definitely on the radar here for a long call. AVGO on the board. Netflix on the board. AVGO. Just get a little pinch there. All right, Tesla does have indeed a wide range bar off the open here, off the 200 pre-moving average on the small time frames here. All right, so I'm going to fix in long call Tesla here. I like it because it's very definitive on a risk. If that wide range bar gives out, we'd be proven wrong. So very clear, defined risk here. So I'm going to go August 29th expiration, just this Friday's expiration, just for a day trade here on Tesla, ticker Tesla. We're trading 48 handle, give or take. So I'll go maybe like a 30 delta, 35 delta, 30 delta, give or take. You maybe pick up like the 357 here. Let's go for about 350. Long call Tesla. So I'm going to get long call Tesla here. And we right click, copy this code. This is going to be the premium chart. All right. So I'm going to grab some other account. Melky Kip. Yeah, it's live right now. This is live, Melky. Indeed, sir. All right, 357 half strike call, Tesla long call here, J trade. All right, now one caveat here is that we are at a level here on the higher time frame supply here. Broadcom fall through here. All right, everybody snag Broadcom here. Long call AVGO. Don't want to be too late to this. I'll pick up very similar, the 30 Delta 307 strike call on AVGO. Copy and paste that into the ticker symbol here. This is ticker AVGO. S&Ps are a bit heavy. Tesla no fall through so far. I want to be extremely careful with that setup there. All right, let me grab some other account. TSM Gonzo. call day trade. Yeah, make some notes here. Tesla no fall through. Break down on spies a little bit there. Tesla. We got news at 22 minutes. So here's Tesla here. I want to call spies are breaking down a bit. Just a bit. I want to be patient with that. All right, Tesla's battling some higher time frame supply up there, so just want to be patient with spies here. Get this. And looking at this, now that we have opening prices here, SPX trading 64.35. See this 64.45 massive bought put here from market maker perspective. So anything to the right is bought, everything to the left is sold. So this is a massive bought put above current price at the moment. Okay, so that's going to provide massive positive gamma above price. So as price goes from, say, for example, 64.35 up to 64.45, for example, if the SPX makes a quick little new high, okay, that is going to be met with what's called some positive gamma, which market makers would have to sell into that and provide some supply / resistance into that. Okay, so we have to definitely put that on the radar in regard to demand and supply, in addition to demand and supply, right? So on something like the SPX, if I look at the price point of 45, which is like right here, there's a massive positive gamma node here. So I'll put that kind of in blue. And make that more. All right, so this can provide some supply / resistance. All right, now you see I'm long Tesla, which is a little bit at the high time frame supply. And that's giving a little bit pushback on drawdown there, okay? All right, a little bit there. IVGO. You can TP some AVGO if you got some AVGO. Make sure you taking profit on some AVGO ticker. It's more of a hedge, Abdul. So it's called market maker hedging. All right, make sure you're taking profit on AVGO here. All right, take profit AVGO. right, ticker AVGO. Make sure you got that here. I see you, Blessing, on YT. Hey, thanks for the likes on TikTok, folks. Your emotions are so chill. Yeah, I've been doing this for like 87 years, so I've been doing this a long time, folks. I'm actually going super slow right now because I'm streaming like 10 different platforms at the moment. All right, I snagged some take profit up here on AVGO. SPYs are a little heavy, folks. All right, you can see Tesla push back against us a little bit here. All right, these are down slightly, but it still has not violated the reason to be in. All right, so we got long call AVGO here on the pullback, and then we just TP'd still, yesterday's high, take profit. Blues are buys, red are sells. All right, take profit. And if this next target, in the event that we take out yesterday's high here, okay, we'll be coming up into a monthly view up here. So if AVGO makes a new higher high, this would be the next take profit area. It's pulling back now. It's okay. It's not violating the reason to be in. Not the strongest ticker on the planet here. QQQs. Oh, this is not the Qs. Silver. Qs are violating a bar here. Qs are a bit more weaker. That's the NASDAQ futures doing. Want to be extremely careful with this Tesla long. So you see, folks, on NASDAQ futures here, we are right now in the middle, literally in the middle still of everything from overnight. So literally 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is the open over here, and we're still on that all overnight. So be extremely patient here, okay? Definitely want to be careful with these Tesla longs here. You can go into what's called a reduced exposure. It's depending on your fill. My other account, I got a better fill down here, so it's in profitability, okay? So in the event that Tesla kind of pops out into, some of y'all can already maybe potentially take some profit, okay? So depending on what your fill was on Tesla. So I'm just going to get some off here. That's called reduce exposure. It's not violated the reason to be in as well, but no fall through here. And Tesla's a little high on that supply level there, okay? You can see the video kind of breaking down, so make sure you protect yourself on AVGO as well. All right, so you can see I'm reducing some loss, and reducing loss in Tesla. QQQ puts are looking decent. I didn't get all out of Tesla. I'm still in. Watch out for if you're scalping Qs or NASDAQ futures. Right, yesterday's low, so I'm not going to chase into that. Switch off of yesterday's low. Could be a bit of a sweep there. We do have news coming out. 10 minutes. It's breaking down a bit. Still in Tesla, but reduced some here, okay? Because the S&P is a little heavy and location-wise on Tesla, so we'll see if we get a pop. We just have massive positive gamma above price. New bull put credit at 64, 63.90 handle. Shout out Joe Frank. VIX taking a clip up. VIX on VIX slightly higher. Blue is the Phantoms AI bot. I gotta say. All right. If you're on TikTok, be sure to hit this website here. Got the greatest setups off this morning here. Trade with Blue. All right, we'll see if we can get Tesla up into yesterday's high here. All right, you can see Tesla here. All right, make sure you TP. I had a couple TP orders up here. You didn't hear the ding. Let me get it in my other account here. Take profit on Tesla, pretty heavy here. Yeah, Money Mike. Hey, what's going on, Mike James and Money Mike? Yeah, that's why I didn't want to chase. Make sure you TP some Tesla up there, okay? That's why I didn't want to chase. Q's down there. Yesterday's low sweep. So yesterday's low sweep plus that yesterday's low sweep plus, see how NASDAQ futures is just still within yesterday's high and low range, literally. So you see that? We're still inside of the 1 hour bar from NASDAQ futures at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time last night. Okay, does that make sense? Y'all see that right there? So what do? Nothing right now. All right, at least in the SP, accused, SPX, and SPY is very a little difficult at the moment as we speak. All right. You gotta be patient. You gotta be patient. You gotta be patient. You gotta be patient. Yep, monthly view ups there. And if you squint hard enough, Money Mike, an elf will show up and tell you when it will break out. So yeah, there's something there, but we're just inside bar, brother. We're just inside bar. So you're searching for reasons one way or the other to go. I get it. Just gotta be patient. Hell yeah, brother. Money Mike. Visa. Visa, 1, 2, 3, go here on the daily, monthly, weekly, daily line. Sweep, swap, sweep, swept. Low last month, low, swap, swap, swap. Weekly, positive COG 2, 3 weeks ago. Follow through here. 1, 2, 3, go on Visa. On the daily. It's actually had better fall through than Tesla and Avgo at the moment. Avgo, AVGO. Could TP some more AVGO if in still? AVGO is looking like a. I want to be patient with all this positive gamma on the SPY. I'm sorry, SPX. Make sure you take some profit on AVGO here if you still have contracts on. Going a little slow here. All right, that's an AVGO. Not big movers today, so hold your cards tight today, folks. Tesla just gave a reduced loss tag there. Whoa. There we go. Let's see if AVGO can pop above its prior day's high. Slow morning. Meta trapping. Spies are heavy. Meta is a little sneaky play here. It's giving some clearing vibes here. but not going to be able to be here to manage that with you folks in here. Qualcomm, check Qualcomm. Oh, nice one, Aiden. I see you on YT. Good pain gap, brother. That was a good off the open. Qualcomm's a very rangy ticker, I will say. That monthly go up 1 hour 20 and 200 support on Q. Yeah. All right, this session's boring me. I can explain Qs in 2 lines. Higher time frame power trend up. Versus are we going to snap? This. So yeah, there's stuff here. We're still basically holding on the upper and third range of Friday's bar. So yes, the power enforces to be on the higher time frames. Are indeed up. So we're just basing. We're just basing. Could be upper third range of Friday's bar. Basing. So that's why I'm looking for. I'm watching out for a bit of liquidity sweeps here. There's a lot of positive game above price on S&P 500. I mean, if we break lower, we could be retesting some of those again. Like I mentioned, our Friday lows. There's really not much here, but you know, a lot of our retail traders will see this and say, oh, they're gonna fill this. They're gonna fill this big, ready to go down. So I don't want to get trapped there, right, on these little liquidity sweeps here. But the buyers need to overtake some of these here. If this red bar can get taken out potentially back above VWAP, back above everything here, you get some basing that could potentially click this to the upside here, right? All right, AVGO have a new high here, so make sure you TP. All right, I'd suggest to let go of some more AVGO contracts if you still have them. News just came out 1 minute ago. Not really moving markets. Kind of boring. All right, that's a TP AVGO. Take profit on AVGO ticker, okay? Not a lot of setups this morning. I would suggest to be patient. AVGO just pop. Make sure you're taking some more out here. TP AVGO. Tesla's being annoying. All right, folks. Make sure you take reducing risk and exposure. AVGO here. Tesla managed to squeak out of some in profit, some in slight loss, and that's understandable because it's going a little bit up, going a little bit down, not really doing much here. So just make sure that you. It's kind of annoying because it's not violating this wide range bar off the 200 on the higher time frames here, but we are close onto the upper time frame supply. So I don't know if anybody's still in this. If you have some on, just be careful. If in the event that this thing just breaks this level right here, just get out. All right. On Tesla, especially a ticker like Tesla, if it's gonna go, it's gonna go. All right, kind of got some, indeed, some supply, daily highs up here, etc. So definitely take a peek at that. Yeah, Abdul, indeed, brother. So there'll be better. There's better times for sure. AE, I see you on TikTok. How does TikTok even work? Am I supposed to say hi to you guys and girls? Dog sent lightning. What does that mean? What does that mean? Thank you, though, man. All right, folks. Kind of boring. Make sure you're controlling your exposure on Tesla. If you want to learn a bit more, we have a ton of Phantoms in here already. And everybody here at Phantoms started all in the same place at that website right there. Okay. So you can hit up that link there. You see it. And that will take you to this web page here. Looks like this. And if you click on register now, that will take you to another web page where you'll see a name, email, phone number. You can click the attend, register for about a 90-minute kind of class, if you will. Next one is going to be Thursday, August 28th, 2025. So this Thursday, of course, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I can come check it out, Phantoms, that is. And, you'll see this is the kind of agenda here. You'll be hosted by either Mr. Green or Mr. Black. Sometimes both of them will help out there as a team. Here's what you'll learn. Y'all can read that, how markets really work. We're all professional traders here. Myself, Mr. Blue, Mr. Black, Mr. Green. How institutional demand and supply works, from analyzing it from top-down, multiple time frame analysis, multi-direction, up, down, sideways, anywhere between growing a small account all the way up to we have folks that are in starting small with $100 all the way into folks that are retired and managing multi millions, etc. Okay, not just about stocks, so futures, forex, options, even crypto. Okay, we trade crypto. I love Bitcoin. Okay, all that kind of stuff, right? So trading for income, whether you're trading for short-term income, just as a side right now, or potentially looking to do it more full-time, all the way to wealth management, everything in the middle, right? For new folks, all the way to helping folks that are a little more experienced as well. Come on. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, great as well. We'll still do our thing. And that's it for me, Mr. Blue. Trade safe, kind of quiet a bit there off of the catalyst of last week, but I'll see some of my Phantoms members later today in class. And then tomorrow morning, God willing, we will be in the live trade room where we will have no lags and no social media. We could do our thing, right? That said, I'm done for now. God bless. Take care. Thank you for all the follows and the lightnings and the whatevs and the likes. I appreciate y'all as much as y'all appreciate me. And maybe I'll catch y'all. Trade safe. Blue out.